Recently, I've been thinking about the various nuances that you learn about being a woman in this world when you are transgender. And as most of you guys know, I've been hosting conversations about being transgender on this channel for most of my life. In one of my recent videos, I discussed my reaction to people who say that they disagree with my gender. And to quickly summarize that video, I said that I think it's pretty impossible to say that you respect a transgender person while saying that you disagree with their gender. But of course, this video encouraged several people to tell me something that I already know about myself, that I do not have the same exact biology as a cis woman. But shockingly, another topic of conversation came up. One of my favorite subjects: men. One of the most confusing things that you run into as a transgender woman is people who confidently believe that transgender women transition not because of gender dysphoria, not to feel more at home in their own bodies, but because they desire male attention. And this notion is so popular that there are men who even pursue transgender women because they believe that their femininity is there to placate and entertain them specifically, so much that they think that they get to have an opinion. In fact, some men who fetishize transgender women will tell them that the reason why they prefer transgender women is that they try harder to be feminine than cis women do. Now, while to me this is obviously something that men say to gaslight very young and very insecure transgender women into their bedroom, this is not an idea that's held exclusively by cis men. Some cis women resent transgender women because they see them as an embodiment of a male idea of what women are supposed to be. Transgender women who transition and have no attraction to men blow people's minds because it's hard for people to understand why somebody would make themselves more feminine if they had no attraction to men. Now, in the same video that I'm referencing, I made the statement that a lot of cis people resent transgender people because we force them to question what they know of themselves. And a lot of cis women are socialized to see their femininity as something that they do for men. From a very young age, a lot of cis women are taught that they're gonna have a hard time finding a romantic partner if they don't put themselves together a certain way, if they don't do their hair a certain way or keep their figure in a certain shape. Even though it's common for a lot of women to reach a certain point where they no longer see their femininity in this way, it tends to be really embedded in a lot of women's minds. And of course, it's reinforced by everyone and it gets passed down from generation to generation. So I guess in a way, I understand why people would look at a transgender woman and imagine that the only reason why she would ever do this is for a man, because that's how so many people understand femininity. Now, I don't doubt that there probably are some transgender women out there who certainly did transition for male attention. That's not my experience, but this whole conversation made me think about my modular feelings about a certain part of my body that has always consistently gotten me male attention: my boobs. Now, I've talked about this in passing, but one of the most confusing aspects of my youth is that when I was a teenager, I started to develop breasts. And this, of course, made PE and gym very uncomfortable because, of course, I had to use the boys' locker room. And I had so many experiences where boys would come up to me and would grab my chest out of confusion and curiosity. And it just kind of made the locker room a very antagonistic space for me. So first I started to develop this body movement where I would sort of take a shirt off while putting another shirt on and not leave my breast exposed for too long. And eventually it became so frustrating to be in the locker room that I would just change in the bathroom before PE. I was a really, really good kid. I was one of those kids who sat up like this, and my teachers would let me out early all the time so I can go and change before PE because I just didn't want to be in the boys' locker room. It was that stressful for me. I did not like the attention I got for my chest at all. I remember I would wear a lot of really baggy clothes and things because I just didn't want for people to look at me in that way. And in the video that I just referenced, I talk about how when I was younger, I used to fight with people a bit when they would read me as a young cis girl. And I think it's because even back then, I understood that being a girl made me more vulnerable. I wasn't really equipped to understand this whole thing. I wasn't really equipped to understand that men were seeing me in a certain way. My parents didn't raise me to be wary of older men who were spending a bit too much time with me and telling me that I was mature for my age and all this stuff. And so I had a lot of really upsetting experiences when I was younger. I didn't feel like I could really be myself when I was at home, and I was in so many ways during this particular time of my life living a bit of a double life because my parents were very, very conservative and definitely were uncomfortable with me being transgender. So I ran away a lot and I got into a lot of trouble when I was a teenager. I was a good kid, but there were a lot of things happening to me that my parents weren't aware of. I've spoken about this a few times on my channel, but when I was in my mid-teens, I met a man who ultimately groomed me and assaulted me. And if you follow my channel, you know that that experience certainly did set the foundation for quite a bit of my relationships with men afterwards. I was in a lot of relationships with men who had resources and had money, who could help me during a time in my life where I was vulnerable because I was experiencing this rejection from home, and I knew that there were people out there who appreciated my young feminine body, and I had to do what I had to do to survive. Going away to college was this really liberating experience, and it was that sort of difference in environment that allowed me to feel more confident about my gender. And as I started going through college, I started to understand my body more and understand myself more, and I became less uncomfortable with showing my shape, especially as I started taking hormones and the shape and size of my breast started changing bit by bit by bit. I started to pass more, and I started to notice that my classmates were starting to find me attractive. And for the first real time in my life, I was in sort of an age-appropriate situation where I could engage in dating culture. I started to embrace my femininity, and I will never forget when this guy gave me my first push-up bra, and it was a complete game changer. Now, keep in mind, I went to college between the ages of 17 and 21. So this was just primo time for me to sort of explore all of the things, honestly. Now, back in the day, I was not 21, and I had the outfit that I would wear when I wanted to score some free alcohol, and that outfit required a push-up bra. It was a brown tank top, a push-up bra, and this like brown pencil skirt that I would wear all the time. And that was the outfit that I wore if I wanted to get some free alcohol that evening. I even remember back in the day, there was like, we had this style where you would kind of like show the top of your bra just a little bit. That was kind of like the thing to do. I don't know what was wrong with this back in the day, but like that was the vibe, you know? And I will never forget that I just always had to wear that damn push-up bra because I started to recognize that men noticed my boobs in this context, and this was a situation where I was appreciating getting male attention. And I loved hoisting my boobs and putting them on my chin because that's what I could do. Perhaps because I was experiencing a lot of newness, I had no issues with my boobs being front and center at all times. But there was one problem. Bras are fucking uncomfortable. At a certain point, I recognized that male attention is not worth more than my comfort. So 98% of the time, you will see me not wearing a bra unless the bra is part of the look. And if I'm being completely honest, I actually find male attention to be incredibly abrasive most of the time. I don't like being gawked at. I don't like being catcalled or harassed on the street. And, you know, honestly, one of my favorite hobbies is getting dressed up and looking super sexy and ignoring men all night. That's literally my hobby. My femininity is for me. And it's just a happy byproduct if a man who I'm attracted to happens to appreciate it as well. One of the really strange and often confusing aspects of being transgender is that literally everything you do is viewed with suspicion. It's not that I just like the look of my boobs looking slightly bigger and slightly closer together. It's that I'm a man fetishizing women who is trying to present myself as one for the appreciation and satisfaction of other men. As I said in my previous video, I appreciate that people don't want to be called transphobic, but it's very clear to me that the only way that I could groom myself that would satisfy these people is if I were to remove my breasts and to perform traditional masculinity. Knowing that, I have no qualms describing these people as transphobic because they simply are. Quite frequently, people like to phrase their transphobia as a simple ideological disagreement that is stated with very, very confident, often very untrue ideas that are supposed to be believed simply because the person stating them is not transgender. And of course, transgender people can never be trusted to be faithful narrators of their own life and experiences. Like I said, I don't doubt that there are probably some transgender people who have transitioned so that they can get male attention. I think that's possible. Anything is. But I certainly haven't. And I actually find it very sad that there are people out there who feel that femininity is something that can only exist if it's for the entertainment of a man. Let me be honest with you guys, male attention isn't very hard to get. All my life, all I've ever had to do is stand in public long enough and I got male attention. So to me, it's really not that impressive. But it's sad that so many people see it as such. It's sad that so many people see it as such a strong source of validation. What does it say about us that we see femininity as something that couldn't exist unless a man found it attractive? I think it's worth processing how intensely we're all impacted by heterosexism and how it encourages us to limit ourselves in many ways. How many times have you prevented yourself from being comfortable because comfort contradicted what you were taught about your gender? Just food for thought.